Nobody planned for this to sound like a confession without actually being one, but that's exactly how it landed. One casual conversation, a few loaded pauses, a tone that said I've seen things without ever spelling them out. And suddenly, Lee and Chrisean Rock weren't just talking, they were triggering the internet. Because when those two start hinting about Diddy parties, it doesn't feel like gossip. It feels like a curtain got tugged just enough for everyone to panic. This wasn't a clean expose with bullet points and receipts. That's what made it explode. The vibe felt loose, almost reckless, like secrets were circling the room and nobody bothered to lock the door. Names weren't said, but reactions said plenty. Laughter landed too hard, silences lingered too long. And the internet did what it does best, it assumed the worst, connected imaginary dots, and ran full speed with zero breaks. Timelines caught fire, clips got chopped, comment sections turned into digital courtrooms. Suddenly everyone online was asking the same question at the same time. What exactly did they see, and why does Hollywood feel nervous right now? This didn't just make the Kardashians look boring. It made the entire industry look like it was holding its breath. The second Lee and Chrisean Rock's conversation started circulating, it didn't feel like a clip. It felt like a leak. Not because documents dropped or names were read aloud, but because the tone did all the talking. This was the kind of exchange that makes people stop scrolling and sit up straight, because something about it feels off script. Too casual, too knowing. Like the speakers forgot how loud the room actually was. Lee has built an entire career on being close enough to celebrity spaces to understand how they work, but distant enough to speak about them with a raised eyebrow and a half smile. He doesn't yell secrets, he suggests them. And Chrisean Rock, unpredictable as ever, doesn't package her reactions for safety. She reacts in real time, emotionally, without polishing anything for optics. That combination alone was enough to set the internet on edge. What made this moment ignite wasn't a single sentence. It was the rhythm of the conversation, the pauses that felt deliberate, the laughs that landed a second too late, the way certain words were emphasized while others were skipped entirely. To a casual listener, it might have sounded like vague commentary. To the internet, it sounded like people speaking around something instead of directly at it. And that's where the speculation started sprinting. Diddy's parties have always existed in pop culture as more myth than memory. They're spoken about like legendary gatherings, exclusive, powerful, untouchable. The kind of events people reference without details, because details are never part of the story. So when Lee and Chrisean Rock hinted at personal experiences within those spaces, the internet didn't hear gossip. It heard confirmation of curiosity that's been sitting there for years. The clip didn't spread slowly. It moved like gasoline finding fire. Reaction pages grabbed it first, slapping captions like, "This is wild," and "Wait till you hear this." No claims, no proof, just intrigue. And intrigue is the most dangerous ingredient online, because it invites people to fill in blanks they were already staring at. Jason's tone stayed controlled, almost amused, like someone who knows more than they're saying and is enjoying watching the room react. That alone made listeners uneasy. When someone talks about powerful spaces without fear, people assume access. And when they assume access, they assume credibility. Fair or not, that perception did the heavy lifting. Chrisean Rock's presence added volatility. She didn't drive the narrative, but she didn't interrupt it either. Her reactions, the looks, the laughs, the body language became evidence for people who wanted to believe there was more beneath the surface. Not evidence in reality, but evidence in the court of internet opinion, where vibes count more than verification. Within hours, timelines were filled with slowed down clips. People rewound certain moments like they were decoding a hidden message. Why did he pause right there? Why did she react like that? That silence was loud. Suddenly, not saying something became more important than saying anything at all. Context started getting dragged in aggressively. Old interviews, archived photos, unrelated moments from years ago resurfaced, not because they proved anything, but because they felt relevant. That's how speculation works. It doesn't need logic. It needs alignment. And the internet is very good at forcing alignment where none exists. bloggers moved carefully, but the headlines still screamed curiosity. Words like spark, hint, and fuel speculation did the legal heavy lifting while still inviting clicks. Nobody accused anyone of anything, but everyone understood the implication. This wasn't about facts. It was about atmosphere. Fans split immediately. One side said the internet was reaching, as usual, turning nothing into a spectacle because boredom demands drama. The other side argued that conversations like this don't happen accidentally, especially when both speakers understand how the internet operates. Both sides talked past each other, because the argument wasn't about truth. It was about trust, and trust online is fragile. What intensified the reaction was timing. Audiences are already suspicious of celebrity culture. They're more critical, more curious, and less patient with polished narratives. So when Lee and Chrisean Rock spoke in a way that felt unscripted, people leaned in hard. The clip landed in an environment primed for doubt, not forgiveness. Jason didn't rush to clarify. Chrisean didn't correct the tone. And silence, once again, did what silence always does online. It invited interpretation. People mistook restraint for strategy. Others assumed legal caution. A few believed the lack of denial meant confirmation. None of those assumptions were fair, but all of them were viral. By the end of the day, this wasn't just about what was said. It was about what people believed could be true. And belief, once activated, doesn't need evidence to grow. It feeds on repetition, commentary, and reaction, all of which were in endless supply. Reaction channels went to work. Shocked thumbnails, question marks, bold text promising answers that never came. Not because creators were lying, but because they were reacting to a reaction. That's the safest lane in moments like this. You don't claim, you observe. And observation alone keeps the engine running. The most interesting part was how quickly this conversation detached from Jason and Chrisean themselves. Their names became triggers, not sources. The internet ran ahead of them, constructing theories so fast that even a direct statement would have struggled to catch up. That's the danger of hint-based virality. Once the spark is lit, the fire chooses its own direction, and yet, there was something undeniably effective about the moment. Lee and Chrisean Rock didn't reveal secrets. They reminded the public that secrets exist, that Hollywood isn't just premieres and red carpets, that private rooms stay private for a reason, and sometimes just acknowledging that reality is enough to make people uncomfortable. By nightfall, the conversation had fully shifted from curiosity to obsession. Names real and imagined started trending without context. Comment sections turned reckless. People spoke with confidence about things they could never verify. And the original clip sat at the center of it all, unchanged, still vague, still unspecific, still powerful. Because the most dangerous stories aren't the ones that tell you everything, they're the ones that tell you just enough. And as the internet leaned forward, hungry for more, it became clear this moment wasn't going to fade quietly. The speculation had momentum now. And momentum online only moves one way: louder, messier, and far more uncomfortable. Once the clip cleared its first 24 hours online, it stopped being content and started becoming culture. This is the stage where a story no longer belongs to the people who sparked it. It belongs to the algorithm, the audience, and the collective imagination of millions of bored detectives with Wi-Fi and opinions. And let me tell you, the imagination clocked in early and worked overtime. TikTok grabbed the clip like it was a raw nerve. Creators stitched it with dramatic music, flashing captions screaming "this part right here," and zoom-ins so aggressive they deserved their own warning label. Lee's pauses became entire subplots. Chrisean Rock's reactions got slowed down, looped, and analyzed like they were auditioning for a true crime reenactment. Every eyebrow raise became a thesis. Every laugh turned into a footnote. The internet wasn't listening anymore. It was interpreting. Twitter, of course, turned into a live courtroom with no judge and unlimited closing arguments. Threads popped up connecting dots that had never met each other. Old photos resurfaced not because they proved anything, but because they felt like they belonged in the conversation. And feelings, as we know, are undefeated online. People typed allegedly like it was a magical shield and proceeded to speculate anyway, with confidence levels that should be studied. The memes didn't wait for permission. One compared the moment to a season finale cliffhanger where the writers refused to give answers. Another joked that Lee unlocked Hollywood Insider mode and forgot to turn it off. Someone else said the clip felt like the trailer for a documentary that would never see daylight but haunt the internet forever. Humor did what humor always does, it softened the edges while sharpening the reach. And then came the subtweets. Not direct. Never direct. Just close enough to feel personal. Some conversations don't need microphones. People forget how loud silence can be. If it's not your story, don't narrate it. Vague? Absolutely. But the internet filled in the blanks like it always does. Comment sections tagged names that were never mentioned. Everyone thought they cracked the code. Nobody agreed on what the code actually was. Reaction channels smelled blood in the water. Thumbnails stacked up like dominoes, wide eyes, red arrows, question marks so big they needed their own zip codes. Nobody claimed facts. Nobody had receipts. They didn't need them. They were reacting to reactions, which is the safest and most profitable lane in a speculative storm. Views rolled in. Debates got louder. And the clip kept circulating like it had unfinished business. What really pushed this into overdrive was timing. The audience is already suspicious of celebrity culture. They're tired of polished narratives and rehearsed apologies. So when Lee and Chrisean Rock spoke in a way that felt unscripted, people latched on. Not because they heard truth, but because they heard possibility. And possibility is gasoline when trust in institutions is already low. Jason's reputation did heavy lifting here. Fair or not, people believe he's close enough to the machine to know how it runs. That belief alone made every half sentence feel heavier. Chrisean's presence added unpredictability. She didn't steer the conversation, but she didn't stop it either. And on the internet, not stopping something is often treated like co-signing it. That's not logic. That's viral it. The story grew legs, it also grew mutations. Edited clips appeared with added captions that changed the tone entirely. Fake quotes started floating around. Sources say posts appeared with no sources. This is where things always get dicey when speculation starts cosplaying as information. Some users tried to slow it down, calling out the reaches. Those comments were immediately buried under memes and hot takes. Because calm doesn't trend and caution doesn't get shared, blogs adjusted their language on the fly. Headlines softened, while the comment sections hardened. Internet reacts to replaced exposed, sparks conversation replaced reveals. That shift always signals the same thing. The story went from entertaining to uncomfortable. When everyone suddenly remembers responsibility at the same time, you know the line got close. Lee stayed measured publicly. Chrisean Rock stayed unbothered. That contrast only fueled the narrative. Calm was read as confidence. Silence was read as strategy. Strategy was read as guilt by people who wanted a conclusion. The internet doesn't like open endings. It wants answers, even if it has to invent them. Then the phrase itself started changing. Diddy parties stopped sounding like glamorous folklore and started sounding like something people whispered about. Not because of confirmed revelations, but because curiosity had been activated. Once curiosity wakes up, it doesn't need proof to stay alive. It needs repetition. And repetition was everywhere. People began arguing about responsibility. Should public figures hint at things they won't clarify? Or should audiences stop turning hints into accusations? Both sides wrote essays in comment sections that nobody fully read. The debate wasn't about right or wrong. It was about control. Who controls a narrative once it's out in the wild? By midweek, the moment had fully detached from its origin. It wasn't about Jason or Chrisean anymore. It was about what could be true. And that's the most combustible version of a story, because possibilities are infinite and accountability is optional. Names trended without context. Reputations brushed up against conversations they never agreed to join. The clip sat at the center, and changed, still vague, still powerful, and just when it seemed like the internet would finally move on, the quieter Ripple effects started surfacing. Not loud enough to trend, not dramatic enough to meme, but real enough to matter. Conversations happening off camera, rooms feeling different, people choosing words more carefully than before, because once a space feels watched from the inside out, everyone adjusts, and that's when it became clear this wasn't just another viral moment. It was a pressure test, a reminder of how fast curiosity turns into conviction, and how easily implication can outweigh intention. The internet might have been laughing, but behind the scenes, people were paying attention. When the noise finally softened, it didn't feel like resolution. It felt like exhaustion. The internet had done what it always does, chewed the moment to pieces, argued itself into circles, and then wandered off to the next spectacle. But for the people involved, this wasn't something you could scroll past and forget. This was one of those moments that changes how rooms feel when you walk into them. Jason Lee felt the shift almost immediately. Not in headlines, not in cancellations, but in energy. Conversations slowed down around him. People chose their words more carefully. Not because he said something wrong, but because he reminded everyone that proximity to power comes with memory, and memory makes people uncomfortable. Jason didn't need to confirm or deny anything for the reminder to land. The implication alone was enough to make people reassess how freely they speak in mixed company. That's the irony. Jason has always been outspoken, but this time he didn't raise his voice. He didn't expose documents or name names. He simply let the tone hang in the air. And sometimes tone does more damage than truth ever could. It makes people wonder who else is listening. It makes private spaces feel less private. Chrisean Rock's fallout looked different, but it hit just as hard. Her name already carries volatility, so the internet didn't treat her as a witness or a commentator. It treated her like confirmation. That's the cost of a reputation built on unpredictability. Even when you're not driving the conversation, your presence shapes how it's received. Silence becomes loud. Neutral reactions get framed as agreement. And suddenly, you're responsible for a narrative you never fully created. Some fans defended her fiercely, arguing that she was being used as a scapegoat for an internet spiral she didn't initiate. Others questioned why she didn't shut the conversation down. Both sides missed the same point: the internet doesn't care about intention. It cares about impact. And the impact here was undeniable. Behind the scenes, the ripple effects were quiet but unmistakable. Invitations didn't disappear, but they changed tone. Where things once felt casual, they now felt curated. Who's invited? Who's present? Who might talk later? Those questions don't trend, but they matter. When speculation touches a space, people start guarding it instinctively. The phrase "Diddy parties" itself took on new weight. What used to sound like glamorous folklore now sounded like something people tiptoed around. Not because of confirmed revelations, but because curiosity had been activated in a way that couldn't be undone. Once the internet starts imagining what happens behind closed doors, every closed door starts looking suspicious. Blogs quietly adjusted. Language softened. Headlines shifted from explosive to reflective. That's always the tell. When everyone suddenly remembers nuance, it's because the moment crossed from entertaining into uncomfortable. Nobody retracted anything, but nobody pushed harder either. The story didn't end, it settled. Jason eventually addressed the reaction without addressing the substance. Calm, controlled, almost dismissive. Enough to signal that the internet had sprinted far past the starting line. But by then, it didn't matter. The narrative had already grown legs and wandered off. Once a story reaches that point, clarification feels like trying to catch smoke with your hands. Chrisean Rock stayed quiet, and that choice became its own storyline. Some praised her for not feeding the chaos. Others accused her of letting speculation breathe. Again, fairness wasn't the metric. Engagement was. And silence, in moments like this, becomes a canvas people project onto. As time passed, the moment didn't resurface loudly, but it never fully disappeared. It showed up in jokes, in side comments, in unrelated discussions where someone would casually reference it without explanation. That's when you know something has become cultural shorthand. It's no longer about what happened, it's about what people think it represents. But the most uncomfortable realization came later. This wasn't a scandal that burned careers or triggered lawsuits. It was something quieter and more dangerous. It was a reminder of how quickly implication can outweigh evidence, and how easily public figures lose control of a narrative the moment it leaves their mouths. Jason Lee reminded people that insiders exist. Chrisean Rock reminded people that reactions matter as much as statements. And the internet reminded everyone that it doesn't need facts to feel convinced. That's the real fallout. Because now, the next time similar conversations happen, people will speak softer, pause longer, choose words with surgical precision. Not because they learned anything new, but because they learned how fast curiosity turns into conviction, how quickly a hint becomes a headline, how easily a vibe becomes a verdict. This moment didn't expose secrets. It exposed tension. It exposed how fragile trust is in spaces built on image. It showed how the public hunger for behind-the-scenes truth doesn't come with patience or restraint. And maybe that's why this story lingered longer than it should have. Not because of what was said, but because of what it revealed about the audience. The readiness to believe, the excitement of speculation, the thrill of feeling close to something exclusive without ever stepping inside the room. By a time the internet fully moved on, the damage wasn't visible, but it was real. Rooms felt different. Conversations felt guarded. And the idea that nothing slips anymore stopped feeling true. Because once the internet believes secrets are leaking, it doesn't stop listening, and the next time someone hints at something they shouldn't or maybe shouldn't have to, the reaction will be louder, faster, and even less forgiving. Now don't just sit there acting like your timeline didn't just get shook. Get in the comments. Was Jason Lee dropping breadcrumbs on purpose, or did the internet sprint a marathon off a single pause and a raised eyebrow? Did Chrisean Rock's reactions fuel the fire, or was she just caught in the blast radius of speculation culture doing what it does best? Say what you really think. Argue. Debate. Break it down. This comment section is the real after party, and unlike Hollywood's nobody's checking a guest list, if this video had you locked in like a late-night rabbit hole you swore you'd only check for 5 minutes, smash that like button like it owes you money and changed its number. Every like tells the algorithm to keep feeding us the messy conversations everyone else is scared to touch. And if you're new here, don't just lurk like a background character in a scandal documentary. Hit that subscribe button right now. This channel doesn't wait for stories to cool off. When whispers turn into waves, when side comments go viral, and when the internet starts connecting dots it probably shouldn't, we're already breaking it down, louder, sharper, and way more entertaining than the watered-down versions. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next moment that has timelines spiraling and celebrities choosing their words carefully. Because let's be honest, stories like this don't disappear. They resurface, they evolve, and eventually, something bigger always drops. This is where viral chaos gets decoded, rumors get examined, and internet meltdowns turn into cultural moments. Stay curious, stay loud, stay watching, because when the next harmless comment shakes the internet,